Hi, welcome back to Heather's Crochet Corner. In this tutorial, we're going to do a product demonstration or a product review. This is something I got as a free item to try out and test. It's supposed to be a crocheted baseball cap. Let's just see what it comes with. Okay. Instructions. Looks like you get the brim of the hat. This is actually crochet thread, which I have never used before, so that'll be a first for me. Okay, I'll get the plastic out of here. Let's see what you get. Oh, see, that's something I haven't seen in a kit before. I've received a few kits as a product tester. Normally what I tend to look for, my biggest thing I like to make sure of is, one, if the pattern that's included can be followed by beginners. A lot of these kits make claims that, oh yeah, they're beginner friendly. And I found that not so much. A lot of them aren't. And to me, a beginner, you should know how to do your slip knot. A beginner should know how to chain. A beginner should know how to do a single crochet, a half double crochet, and a double crochet. That to me is beginner things that maybe an absolute beginner might not know everything. But if you're going to start following a pattern as a beginner for an easy project, those are the things to me that are really important. Once you start getting into like the amigurumis, where you're increasing and decreasing your stitches, that's a little more like beginner advanced in my mind. I mean, everyone's going to have their own take on what they feel a beginner should know or shouldn't know or should be able to tackle, or maybe a little too much. But for me, my own personal experience, that's just how I feel about it. Back to what's included in here. You get the brim of the hat. You get crochet thread. You get your instructions. You have a ergonomic 3mm crochet hook. It's nice that you get an ergonomic. A lot of times you just get a cheapy plastic one that isn't marked at all. You get some stitch markers. You get a nice little tag that you can sew in. It says handmade. That is super cute. So whether you use it or you don't, you use it for something else, that's up to you. But this is rarely ever included in the kits that I receive. And you get a plastic yarn needle, very common. So that's what this kit includes. Let's look at the instructions. You have baseball cap. And in typical fashion, I'm seeing a lot more of these QR codes. So you'll have to use your phone or an iPad, something that you can scan a QR code with to get the actual video tutorial. Let's see. Dear friend, if you are a beginner, please scan the QR code with your phone and crochet step by step. If you are a crocheter, you can just scan the QR code to quickly browse through the videos, and you can crochet according to the steps in the instructions. So it tells you the stitches. Sort of. It kind of tells you R is for row, gives you a breakdown of the abbreviations, so chaining, single crochet, double crochet, slip stitch, standing stitch. I haven't heard of a standing stitch. An empty stitch. I haven't heard of an empty stitch. Let's see, you've got your front loop only, back loop only, increasing your stitches, and then 3 chain stitches is one standing stitch. Really? And then 1 standing stitch is 1 double crochet stitch. Okay, I guess. And it just gives you from the top and depth of the cap itself. And let's see, so I guess if you're making it for a man, your first row would be a double crochet, doing 14 double crochets. If you're doing it for a woman, it's 13. If you're doing it for a child, it's 12. And I guess once you've done your first row, depending on what sizing you're going to make, then you would continue on. Or it looks like 20 rows. And let's see, you need to crochet 2 pieces of the hat brim and then sew the brim board in. Okay, this is all front loop only for 15 rows. I may just want to get the, it'd be only decent of me to check out the QR code. If I'm actually testing the product, I need to make sure that the video that they're linking to, that is actually something you can follow. Sometimes I find that they're either really good, and in most recent cases, not so much. They've went through the first like 2 rounds of something. They completely skipped 3 and 4 and went right into the main project. So I have no idea how they did 3 and 4 as a beginner. So that's something I need to look into. So let me just grab my phone. See if we can't get this. The QR code. There we go.
Hello, everyone. Today we will update the crochet of this baseball cap. This cap is simple and casual. Boys and girls can take it. There is a brim board with it. We're using a C-style brim board. Okay, the color of finished product is silver gray. Number 25. I use a dark gray from number 27 to crochet. Find the yarn tail first. Let's burn the position of the yarn tail. Okay, let's start now. This is the hook in the material package. Use the 4.0 to crochet.
If you not what I got.
Like this, use the 3.0 to crochet. Okay, let's start now. Thumb pinches the yarn. Index finger pick the yarn. Wrap a coil around the middle finger. Hold your thumb on this intersection. The hook put in this loop. Let's yarn cover and bring the loop out. There is a loop on the hook. Let's crochet 3 chain stitches. 1, 2, 3. 3 chain stitches equals 1 start stitch. 3 chain stitches can be used as a double crochet stitch. Let's put a mark buckle in the 3rd chain stitch. Okay, after hanging, let's crochet double crochet stitch in this loop. Yarn cover, hook in this loop and bring out. There are 3 loops on the hook. Merge the previous 2. Merge again. Yarn cover, hook in this loop and bring out. Merge the previous 2. Merge again. Yarn cover, hook in and bring out. Merge the previous 2. Merge again. Okay. Next we crochet the double crochet stitch. Because this color is more suitable for men, we can crochet 14 stitches. If you want to crochet for women, we can crochet 13 stitches. If it's for kids, we can crochet 12 stitches. Okay. Let's take 14 stitches for example.
Okay. And that's why it's up to me to be thorough and check out these QR codes, because that's just a mess as far as a beginner. So if somebody who's just learning to crochet, they know how to make their slip stitch, they know how to chain, they know how to make a single crochet or a half double crochet and a double crochet. Following that as the first pattern of instructions is going to be confusing. It's a disaster. And I'm not trying to be overly critical. I'm just speaking for my experience. If that was my first introduction to a pattern that says this is a beginner-friendly pattern, oh my goodness. No. So what they were doing in that video there is they're making a magic ring. And they're working into the magic ring, which none of that here indicates there's a magic ring involved. Usually it's MR for magic ring or MC for magic circle. They might even call it like an adjustable magic loop in some cases. I don't see any of that in the instructions here that would suggest any of that. But yeah, let's see. I don't know what the burning of the end is all about. I've never done that. Okay. So here's the brim. So it looks like styrofoam, but it's definitely not as fragile as styrofoam. So it's like a, I don't know, like plastic, I guess, or I'm not really sure what that is. Here's the thread. Just turn that over there. Here's your end. I mean, I guess it's to keep it from fraying, I guess, is why they burn the end. I'm not going to bother doing that. We can't follow that along. So making a magic ring is something that a lot of beginners do know how to do if they're really focusing on like amigurumi and like stuffed animals, because you're basically starting your work in a circle and you're sort of increasing. Let me just grab one to show you real quick. Okay, see, here's a little cow. This is something I made from another crochet kit, which is pretty decent. So you can actually see where you start here. You can see this is your first round. This is where you make your magic ring or magic loop or magic circle, however you want to call it. So you start in this round here. You can see each consecutive round. You can actually see your rounds that you're working into, okay, because they're a little bit more visible. In most amigurumi, you're kind of working with a single crochet stitch. So that's why some of these things really are beginner friendly. So again, if you can figure out how to make a magic circle, which again, like everything else in crochet, there's multiple ways of doing it. Again, I do mine one way for myself, but when I show beginners, I show them a really easy way, because a lot of people have a hard time making it and figuring out what they're doing with it. So my amigurumi isn't the best. I'm still a work in process in that, but I at least know enough to follow a pattern and getting it to look halfway decent. So this is where your magic circle would come in handy, something like that. Back to this. All right, so one thing I don't like about a lot of these tutorials that are done in this fashion is that a lot of times they won't show you the actual items that you get in your kit. As you saw, they showed a different crochet hook and a different size. It's like, why would you do that? If you're not offering that particular hook with your kit, don't show it. It's just going to confuse people. And that's just my thought on that. So far, I'm not really a big fan, but let's see. I think now my biggest concern is when we actually get to this part, it's not like you can easily poke your hook through here. You know what I mean? So it's not like, how are you going to attach the brim at this point? I guess we'll find out when we get to that point. So I'm gonna just probably just make it for a women's. I may as well. I mean, I don't think my husband wants a crochet baseball cap, but I don't have any kids to make anything for, so I just make it for myself, and hopefully maybe a friend or somebody will want it. So we're going to do 13 double crochets, and from the video it looks like I have to do 13 double crochets into a magic circle. So for me, again, I make mine differently. I'm going to leave myself a little bit of a tail because I usually have to kind of weave it in. So for me, I make it like an X, okay? And I take my crochet hook, put it under this first, see how it looks like an X? I put it underneath, I grab the next piece over, I turn my fingers, and I pinch. That's how I make mine. There are various ways to do it. I will have a specific tutorial that goes along with lesson 5 for my live events. If this doesn't go well, I'll maybe do that and find a amigurumi pattern that I know works and show you guys that. But anyway, back to this one here. It says to do 13 double crochets. So when you make your magic circle, you've got to pinch here because you are working into this space. So make sure your tail is out of the way. All right. And typically what I know to do, and it's not a right or wrong, it's a matter of preference, is I tend to just do a stitch here, like a chain, because that's going to hold everything together. It doesn't say that the chain 3 counts, but they did do a chain 3, so I'll do 2, 3, and then we'll work our 13 double crochets. What I might do is I might use a stitch marker. I might mark this spot here. Okay, still pinching there, and then doing 13 double crochets into this circle. So again, you wrap your yarn over the hook, the yarn over, put your hook through the circle, you wrap your hook, bring it through the circle, and you wrap it again on yarn over, pull through 2, wrap, pull through 2. That's 1 double crochet. I'm going to do 12 more for a total of 13. Two, 3, 4, 5, 6. Oops. Goodness, hold it in place. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 6. 7. 8. Oops. Get off there. Let's count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 11. 12. Should be my last one. 13. Let me double check. That's my chain 3. Doesn't count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Okay, so you see it looks like if you get the circle big enough, it looks like you're just sort of doing like a chainless foundation sort of thing. But to close your magic circle once you get it, you just pull on your tail. You made your, not even a slip knot, that's where you started though, but pull on your tail end. You can see how it's just scrunching and scrunching and scrunching. That's closing to a circle. Okay, just back there. And typically you sort of slip stitch into the top of that chain that you did. And that usually is how you close off your first round. Okay. You usually move your stitch marker. You usually stick it into this position here where your hook is, because now that's going to be your indicator of where you started your second round. All right, so we did 13 for ladies, saying round 2, you want 28 double crochets. So it says 1 slip stitch, 3 chains, and then 1 double crochet, and then 2 double crochet 3 times. So it's like a repeat pattern. So basically we did our slip stitch, chain 3, 1, 2, 3, and it says, let's see, we did 1 slip stitch, we chain 3, and so it's 1 double crochet, and then probably 2 together 13 times, which is probably what that usually indicates how many total stitches in that round, and each round usually increases, which it kind of does, and then it starts to decrease, and then it kind of just, once you get to 28 stitches again, it seems to stay there, and then it just sort of gets bigger in the last couple of rows. So let's just see here. Let me point this out again. We are doing a woman's. We just did 13 double crochets. Round 2 should be 28 stitches all together. And in order to get those 28 stitches, we slipped stitched. We chained 3, which is the height of a double crochet. And then we're going to do 1 double crochet in the next stitch. And we're putting 2 in the next stitch. So basically we're increasing our 13 to 28, and to increase from 13 to 28, doing 1 double crochet, and then 2 double crochets, and we're doing that back and forth 13 times. That's how I read that. So let's see, we did our chain 3, and we're going to go into the next space, putting 1 double crochet, and then into the next space, putting 2. 1, 2. We're putting 1. The next one we're putting 2. Let me try that again. Finish that one off. And just need to get more. Alright, so that was chain 3. It's 1. It's 2 in the same space. That's 1. Back to 2. Okay. 1, and 2, one, and 2, and 1, and 2. One, and 2. Close the end. 1, and 2 in that last stitch. Seems like we're on the right track, but you know, let me just count these stitches. Let's see how many we have. Alright. I'm not going to include chain 3. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21. Why am I short? Why am I short? Yeah, see, I don't know. Because you can't have another frustration with these kits is they're not written out properly. Typically, if you have a stitch count, most of the time your stitch count is at the end. But in this case, they're putting it at the front, which is fine. But usually there's like brackets that indicate, you know, this is your stitch count. This is what you should have at the end of round 2 or round 3 or whatever. So unless I did it incorrectly, unless maybe I'm reading it wrong, but usually a stitch count keeps you on track so you know how many you have. So maybe I should have done 28 double crochets within the 13 spaces that I had. But usually anything that's done in parentheses is what you're doing as a repeat. So I guess I need to refer back to this video to see.
Let's take 14 stitches for example. Let's crochet like this. 3 chain stitches equals 1 double crochet stitch.
So they're doing it for
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 already. Next, still crochet double crochet stitch. Total 14 double crochet stitches. Okay, let's finish it ourselves. Okay, we finished 14 stitches of the first row. Let's take a look. You can count the columns. 3 chain stitches equals 1 double crochet stitch. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. 14 stitches are finished. Tighten this loop. Tighten it a little bit. We're going to start tightening the loop. To tighten this loop, crochet in this stitch where hang the mark buckle. Take it down. We can find the 3rd stitch. Hook in and put yarn tail on the hook. Bring the yarn. Let's crochet a slip stitch. After the slip stitch, crochet 3 chain stitches. Okay. This is the first double crochet stitch of the 2nd row. Put a mark buckle in the 3rd chain stitch. After hanging the buckle, yarn cover. Crochet in the same stitch of the slip stitch. Bring the yarn out. Merge the previous 2 loops. Merge again. There are 2 double crochet stitches in a same stitch. 3 chain stitches equals 1 double crochet stitch. Next yarn cover again. Crochet in the next stitch. Crochet 2 double crochet stitch. Merge previous 2 stitches. Merge again. Yarn cover and crochet in the same stitch. Crochet the second double crochet stitch. Okay, for the second row, we need to increase stitches. Increase 1 double crochet stitch in each stitch. It means 2 double stitches in every stitch. The first row is 14 stitches. The second row is 28 stitches. Okay, we will crochet in this.
See, that's all you had to say. So basically, they're making it for a men's, so they've done 14. I've done 13, not a big deal. But the thing is that they're not accounting for if you've done, 12 for a child or 13 for a woman. So typically with amigurumi, whatever your starting point is, let's say it's 7, you're typically doubling the next round in most cases. Or you're increasing it in some manner because that's how your stitches, get bigger. You're usually starting with like 7, your next row should be 14. So you're usually putting 2 stitches into the previous. Here, it's basically going off the men. So 2 times 14 or 14 plus 14 is 28. And then you're basically just increasing your stitches accordingly. So basically, I'm not going to be doing 28 stitches. I should be doing 26, or if you're doing a child, it'd be 24. So this already is going to throw me off if I'm doing a women's or a child. And yeah, so basically it's saying, you'd want to slip stitch at the end. You want to chain 3 to make your first, what counts as your first double crochet. And then you're going to be doing 2 double crochets basically in each of these stitches to get your final count. So the fact that for some reason that wasn't made clear in here, I had to wait and watch the video, which, it's tough. And I'm trying not to be too critical. But again, if this was a beginner, somebody who's doing this project after they've got their tension correct and they're trying to read a pattern and trying to figure this out, so far it doesn't look good. Okay, so we have to go back. I've just undid what I've done. Here's my chain 3 marked by my stitches here, or by the stitch marker. Here's 1 double crochet. I'm going to basically do 2 double crochets into each previous 13. So I'm going to have 26 by the end of it. So there's 2 in the same space. Let's see if I can't go a bit faster here. Just save on some time, because who knows how long this will actually take me to finish. If I actually, assuming I don't get so frustrated that I put it down, because I would really love to be able to have a tutorial video to show you a product, demonstration and a product review in its entirety. I did try to create one a few days ago, and I just found it so frustrating that I put it down. I may get back into it. I may actually swap the yarn out, because the yarn that was given just kept splitting. And the instructions are not complete. Like I said, they covered the first 2 rounds to get you going. They completely skipped round 3 and 4 in the video. And unfortunately, the written instructions were not written out very well. They made 0 sense. So once I find a proper tutorial to show me how to create a sunflower pattern in a granny square, I will come back to that project and finish it. But until then, I'm hoping this one is a bit easier to figure out. So right now, I would not say this is a great project for beginners as like a first project. This is more of a advanced beginner. If you've followed patterns before, you have some experience with that, and you can make sense of what you need to do based on just watching the video, then yeah, you may be able to get through this without too much trouble. But if this is your very first project, no, I wouldn't suggest this as a very first project for anybody. Not based on the written instructions that I'm given and just watching the horrible video. Alright, so I'm just about done here. Should have 26, and if you're including the chain 3 as a double crochet, which it sounds like they are, I have to put a double crochet into that spot. Alright, round 2, redone. I should have 26. Let's see, if we're counting the chain 3 as one, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26. I have 27. May have miscounted. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, taking out that one. So I'm doing it here. What was I doing? Right. 26, we are slip stitching into the top of the chain 3. And that's going to complete row number 2. I'm going to move my stitch marker up. And we're going to do chain 3 again as the start of our next round. And we will put our stitch marker in this top space. Okay. All right. So 42 stitches. It's going to be less for me because I'm doing women's. Yeah, slip stitch, chain 3 did that. And we are supposed to do a, let's see, looks like a 1 double crochet and then 2 13 times. That's what I thought we were doing in the previous round. Let's see what they have to say in the video.
Same way. The second row is double crochet stitch. There are 2 stitches in every stitch. A double stitch, yarn cover. In the same stitch, 1 more double stitch. Crochet by yourself. There are 2 double stitches in every stitch. This row are total 28 stitches. Finish it yourself.
So yeah, they're doing 2 double crochets into the same space.
Okay, the second row is finished. After finishing, let's crochet the third row. For the third row, look at the position of the first stitch. Still in the stitch of mark buckle. 1, 2, 3. Crochet a slip stitch in the third chain stitch. Bring yarn out. Crochet 3 chain stitches.
Yeah,
if you are a beginner, hang a mark buckle in this stitch. If you can find it, it can be omitted. The third row, we will increase each 2 stitches. 1 stitch in the first stitch. 3 chain stitch equals 1 double stitch. Crochet in the next stitch. 2 double crochet stitches in the second stitch. Yarn cover. In the same stitch, crochet the second double stitch. Okay, it will be like this. Yarn cover. Crochet 1 double stitch in next stitch. Okay. Yarn cover. Crochet 2 double stitches in next stitch.
Yep.
It like that.
That's what they're doing. Exactly. They're just giving you way more words than you need. And they're scrubbing it horribly with the AI, which again, not a fan of. Not a fan of. All right, so yeah, we did our chain 3. It counts as our first double crochet apparently. That's fine. And so what they want you to do is basically you are putting 2 double crochets into the first stitch. Get in there. That's 1. And that's 2. Okay, you got 2 in the same space. And then you're doing 1 in the next space over. And now you're doing 2. So you're just alternating doing 2 double crochets into the same space and then 1. And you're putting 2 in the next space and then 1. And you're continuing that all the way around for round 3. That's 1, 2 in here. Essentially you're increasing your stitches. That's what you're doing. Probably do another video that explains, increasing, decreasing, because that's something you do with amigurumi. Because yeah, that's just how that typically works. You eventually start off small, you get bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, and then eventually you start evening out your stitches, so you've got the same number of stitches, and then eventually you start decreasing again and decreasing and decreasing, and as you can see, my decreasing to the end isn't as nice as it looks here, but again, I'm learning. I can only show you what I know. My amigurumi is not perfect, still very cute. You get the idea. You can see how you increase, and then you kind of just keep a few rows at the same stitch, kind of what it's showing here. Once you get to 56, you kind of go back down and decrease. Then you manage to somehow go from 28 to 112, which I don't know. I guess we'll see how they get there. But anyway, that's my visual. Again, you're starting off small, usually double, and then you kind of do like 1.5, 1.5, 1.5, until you kind of get to the width you need, and then you kind of stay consistent for a few rows, and then you go back down and you, again, not the best example to show you, but you go smaller and smaller until you close it up. That's essentially kind of what we're doing here. So I've left on a 2 space, putting 2 in the same space, so I'm doing 1, and then 2, and 1, and 2, oops, one, and 2. Let's see, if I were doing this with my phone, as far as like the recording of this video, I could just pause myself and come back when the round is done. Do a little fancy camera magic. But because I'm doing it with the webcam, I want to can try, but I'd rather kind of just show you guys most of what I'm doing. 2, that's 1, that's 2. Actually, working with the thread isn't so bad. I wasn't quite sure how I'd feel about that. I've never worked with crochet thread before. It does feel, it feels like a shoelace, like a nylon shoelace. It's not what I expected it to feel like. That's the best way I can describe what I'm working with. It definitely feels like a baby shoelace. It's not as wide as your typical, kids or adult shoelace, but I guess if it were like a dress shoe or like a baby shoelace, that's to me how it feels. It doesn't have much stretch or give to it, unlike yarn. And that was a 1 space and 2 space. You can see that I often do get distracted quite easily, but at least with these stitches and patterns, you can kind of see where you've left off. You can see that there's 1 stitch in that space. You can see that there's 2 in that space, so I'm back into the 1 and then back into 2. So if you do have to put this down for any length of time or you get distracted, it's easy to see where you've left off. So that's something in the plus column. Alright, so that was 1 and 2, 1. I do teach the magic ring as my last lesson in my live classes, and we typically make a beanie hat with it. Just make sure that's correct. There's 1 there. I need to put 1 more in here. I'm glad I double checked. There's 1 and 2. So I should have 26. I know I had 26 here. My math is not good, so I should have 1 less, right? I should have like 40. I should be at 40. All right, let's see if we have 40. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38. All right. Why are my counts off? Well, because they were supposed to be, that's a 1 space. There should be a 2 here. And a 1 here. Okay. And we slip stitch. Close off round 3. She'll go in this way. Slip stitch. And we do our first chain 3 to start the next round, which you can easily, because you're doing a double crochet, it's pretty easy, at least for me, to know where I'm working into. If you're doing a single crochet, which a lot of these amigurumis pretty much are single crochet, that's where stitch markers come in super handy, because sometimes it's not easy to see where you've started and left off. But when you're doing a double crochet, it's quite obvious. I don't know that I'll necessarily use stitch markers going forward just for myself, because I don't need to. But if you're still very new to this and you're not sure, it never hurts to put a stitch marker in there. All right, so you can clearly see your rounds. You can see this is where we started. Here's round 2. We just finished round 3. We are starting round 4. Round 4 looks like the stitch pattern is 1 double crochet, 1 double crochet, and then 2. And that's a total of 13 times. That's what that little asterisk is supposed to indicate in patterns if you're new to pattern reading. And again, this is why I often will suggest when you are getting patterns for yourself, if you're an absolute beginner and you have got your slip knot down, you feel comfortable maybe working with the magic ring, you can chain, you can do a single crochet, you can do a half double crochet, you can do a double crochet. Your tension is, worked out. Go to the yarn manufacturer, go to like yarnspirations.com if you're in the States, or .ca if you're in Canada. Do the same thing for like Lion Brand or Bernat or Red Heart, any of the yarn makers. Go to their website, get patterns from them, because you can usually filter out, I know if it's an easy pattern for beginners, if it's for like an advanced or intermediate, depending on what your skill level is at. And, they'll tell you what you need, how much yarn you need, and what size, like what yardage you need. Those are just much easier to follow, and their patterns are written properly and they are tested. Not to say that this hasn't been tested, but for the love of God, the video is horrible. And if this is your first introduction, if this is your first introduction to learning a pattern and going from a pattern, don't. Get a few more under your belt, get a little more experience under your belt before attempting this. So let's see, we are round 4. Pretty sure if we're following along, it's going to be 1 double crochet, 1 double crochet, and then 2 in the next space. So let's get going on that. It's going to be a 1, 1, 2. We have 1, 1, and then 2 into the next space. And back to 1, 1, 2 into the next space. And 1, 1, 2 into the next space. I'm going to keep going around with 1, 1, 2, 1, 1, 2. It's supposed to be a total of 13 times. But we'll see, it might actually be 13 times, because again, they're doing it based on a men's. I'm doing a women's. So let's see, I actually may try to pause the video here. I'll finish this up off camera, so this video is not like 5 hours long. And I'll come back when round 4 is done. Alright, so I'm back, and I kind of jumped ahead a little bit. I finished round 4, as I said I would. I'm on to round 5. I did my chain 3, and I went ahead to find out what they mean by 1 EST. EST here says it's an empty stitch. My best guess at the time was that they were saying to skip a stitch, which is usually written out differently, like SKST for skip stitch. But that's exactly what they're saying, sort of, with the AI sort of narrating in a very horrible fashion. So basically what row 5 is wanting you to do was I already slip stitched to join row 4. I did my chain 3. I've put 1 double crochet into that space, and now it wants me to do I'm going to call it a skip. So you got to do 2 double crochets in the same space, and you're going to skip. You're going to keep repeating the 2 double crochets and skip. So here's my 2 double crochets. I'm going to skip this stitch right here and work 2 double crochets into this. And there should be 27 little segments of double crochet, 2 double crochets in the same space. I'm going to skip, put 2 in the next one, and continue doing that all the way around round 5. We're placing 2 double crochet stitches into the same space, and then we're skipping a stitch, and we're putting 2 double crochets into the next space, and we're going to do that all the way around. Is there actually a picture? There is not. So that's kind of one thing I have a pet peeve about with these kits that have these patterns, is I'd like to see everything together. Like when if I didn't know what this kit was, if it was sort of just gifted to me, it's like, okay, so yeah, it's a baseball cap. Okay, but how does it look? I need to see it. So if I can see the project, I can distinguish what I'm making. If like the directions don't make any sense, I can at least look at the stitch, look at the project, and sort of decipher maybe what they're trying to do or what they're trying to convey. I still have no idea what the plan is for this, but we'll keep going. So I did my 2, skipping a stitch and putting 2 into the next. And looks like I'm coming up at like 58 minutes already of this video, which is a lot longer than I had anticipated, and I'm only like at the top of the hat. So I may keep pausing and coming back when I've done each step. I don't want this video to be like 5 hours long. So I'm going to complete round 5. I'll come back for round 6. All right, we are on round 6, I believe. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Basically, I slip stitched. I did a chain of 3, and now you're basically just doing granny stitches in between the spaces. So I'm going to do my 3rd double crochet to finish off that granny stitch. And there's supposed to be a chain. And then I'm working into the next. See how there's sets of 2 stitches. I'm working into the spacing between these 2 stitches, the 2 little clusters there. So that's what I'm doing. I'm putting my sets of 3 double crochet stitches into those spaces, doing a chain between these sets, finding the next set below. Here's my space, and I'm double crocheting 3 times into that space, and that's the repeat pattern for this round. I'm gonna come back when I'm all done. All right, so I just finished row 6, and basically you're putting in a granny stitch, which is 3 double crochets into the same space. You're chaining before putting another granny stitch into the next space, chaining, and you're doing that all the way around. And then to start row 7, again, you're pretty much you're ending here at this point, and you are slip stitching, but they want you to slip stitch across here so that you are at this space here where my finger is, so that you do your chain 3 and you start your granny cluster or your granny stitch into that space. And again, you're chaining 1, putting another granny stitch into that open space, chaining 1, putting another granny stitch into that space, chaining 1, and putting a granny stitch into this space, and you're doing that all the way around. So from rows 7 to 17, so you get 11 rows. That's what we're doing. And when you're counting rows, when you're doing a granny square, you're not counting them this way, you're not counting it that way, you're counting it on the diagonal. So you've got 1, 2, 3, 4. That's how many rounds you know that this square is. It's 1, 2, 3, 4. So in case this was just all one color or a solid color or even a darker color, that's how you know. But because I've done every round in a different color, it makes it really easy to see how many rounds there are. So again, doesn't matter as long as you can find your center of that square. You want to go on the diagonal, so you can count 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. So you're not going to count across this way. You're not going to go straight up, straight down, or that way. You've got to go on the diagonal. Okay, that's how you know. So once I get to a point where I've got 11 rounds of just a repeat pattern here, I'll come back. We'll finish off the last 2, see how that works itself out, and then we'll get into the brim, because right now we're making the top of the hat. So let's see. We're pretty much, here's your center right here. We're making the top. You can work with me here. We're making the top of the hat, and from this point, this last round that we did, we are basically making the bottom of the hat that goes down, over to your ears. So that's kind of what we're making at this point. And then we'll come back and we'll figure out how to do the brim work. So I will come back when I'm ready to show you that. Hi, welcome back. This is part 2 of the same video. It's been a few days since I recorded the first half of this, but now we're back, and as you can see, I've finished the project. So this is a product review that I'm doing. It's a product I received for free, and it's just my due diligence to create the product and make it, show you what the kit comes with, show you the end result, and then to offer my honest thoughts about the process, about the kit, about the materials that are provided. And just to recap, we received a kit to make a baseball cap. I don't actually have a picture of it to show you. Sometimes these kits don't have pictures. I really do appreciate when they do. You have this QR code, which gives you a link to a YouTube video, which has been shown previously in my video. I do recall being quite frustrated at it, because what irritates me most is while they do attempt to translate from their their native language to English. They often use AI generated narration, which is horrible. It's so bad. Because a lot of the times you'd hear things like, okay, now single stitch in next space, okay, and let's count our stitches, and okay, and 1, 2, 3, 4, and now we're at the end of the row, and let's count our stitches, okay, and now we are at this second part here, and okay. And oh my god, I just couldn't get through the video. It's so horrible with the AI narration. So if you have a hard time following which, if I'm going back to my very beginner roots, and when they say a project or a kit is beginner friendly, what that typically means is this is not a kit you start with. If you are learning to crochet and you have not learned how to do a slip knot, if you have not learned how to chain, if you have not learned how to create a single crochet or a half double crochet or a double crochet or a slip stitch, if you haven't learned those very beginner, absolute beginner basics, do not attempt to use kits for beginners, because oftentimes your instructions are a QR code that link you to a YouTube video, and those videos are not done very well. I will say that they do go step by step as far as showing you the starting point, which again, we started here and we went through the next row and the next row and the next row, and we did the first round of double crochet stitches in the same space, which is this round here. Actually, no, I'm sorry, it's this round here. You can see there's 2 double crochet stitches in each space. And then I left doing granny stitches, which is 3 double crochets in the same stitch. That's a granny stitch. So that's where I left off in my tutorial before coming back to the second half. And then you're basically just doing that for several rounds. And then you're creating the brim of the hat. And then we did get a plastic piece, a big, well, not big, but a plastic like brim board to create this. Basically, you're doing this step in 2 sections, so you're following this section here, but you've got to do it twice. So you've got to create this portion, and then you create the second side, and once you get those done, then you are sewing them up. But before you sew them up, you got to put the brim board in, which you may have to trim down because it was quite large. It kind of came out to about here, but my stitches didn't account for the length. Plus they were a bit too pointy, so you would have been poking your head wearing this. So I rounded them off and I just sort of trimmed a little bit so that it fit. But overall, not a bad project. But again, if you are an absolute beginner and this was your very first project, it'd be a nightmare. It'd be an absolute nightmare for you to follow those tutorial videos and the way the AI was generated in narrating the speech. So if you are able to make those beginner stitches and you can follow along visually with what the person is doing, this is something you may be able to do. You may be able to attempt this project. That's kind of what I had to do because the instructions and some of these abbreviations don't mean the same thing to me as they might for somebody maybe in China, but this might also be an AI attempted pattern where, they're trying to translate from Chinese to English, and it's not a very cohesive translation. So again, if you're able to know those basic stitches and you can look and follow along visually with what the person is doing in the video, then yes, absolutely, you can probably make your best attempt and get something very similar. But again, you're using a magic ring and you're using increases and decreases, and you're doing double crochets throughout the majority of the project until you get to the brim. And then once you get to these last 2 rows around the opening and you start making this section here, these are all single crochets. I did sort of tweak it because they were doing, again, if you watch the video up to this point where they're showing you how to attach the brim, it's horrible. It is absolutely horrible. But again, if you know that they're just single crocheting along, you can just pause it at that point and then just do what you need to do to finish this off. Otherwise, it does make a nice hat. It does fit me. It fit my little mannequin pretty well. And even though I can't even say it's yarn, it's more like, it's got the thickness of like string for like helium balloons. So like the ribbon for balloons, that's like the thickness that you have, but it has the feel of like a shoelace. So really it's got no stretch. It's got no give. It was easy to work with, surprisingly. I have never worked with something like this before. So it was quite nice. But even though the actual strand doesn't give you much give, you can see that it does offer a bit of stretch. So that works out. So even if you did maybe make a woman's size hat, which I did, and the instructions are all for a men's size. My husband actually did wear this just for ha-has, really. It fit him. It fits me. It fits on my little mannequin, my little styrofoam mannequin. It'd be too big for a child size, but this is the end result here. And for the kit, you obviously get plenty. Even if you were making a men's size, you'd have plenty left over, which is good. So you don't have to worry about using too much or feeling like maybe you're not going to have enough. You'll have plenty left over. You get stitch markers in the kit. I'm just going through this because I don't remember if I'd already gone through what you get in the kit. You get this plastic yarn needle, typical, that's fine. Stitch markers you usually get, you get this nice little leathery or faux leather little tag, says handmade, that you could stick anywhere. I mean, I guess you could, attach it at any point at the back if you wanted. I think I'm going to just not attach it. I might just save this for maybe a blanket or a future project like a scarf or something. But that's the first time I've seen that. I've had several kits that were given to me for testing purposes and review purposes, and that's the first time. And you also get this 3 millimeter ergonomic hook. So again, the hook was good to use. It's a good size for this particular, I guess it's crochet thread technically. So that did work really well, and now I've got a nice 3 millimeter ergonomic hook to add to my collection of hooks. So yeah, as far as, again, being an absolute beginner project, I'm going to go ahead and say no. But again, if you are comfortable with making your slip knot and your single crochet and chaining and double crochet and slip stitching, and you are able to watch what the person is doing, I'd say, if you have to turn off the captions or whatever to not get too distracted by the nonsensical AI narration, you could be okay. You might be able to follow along. Again, this isn't written out properly as far as the brackets. There should be actual like brackets, not just parentheses here. As far as proper pattern instructions go. Again, if you can visually follow along, you'll be okay. And again, for the brim of the hat here, this is made in 2 pieces, and you slip in. Like, let me just sort of give you a visual here. So let's just pretend that this is, the brim of the hat. It's made in 2 pieces. Okay, it's made in two pieces that you get sewn together. Actually, get sewn together more like this way, because here's the side, here's another open end, and here's the other open end. So you're basically making 2 pieces, following these instructions, and then you put the brim board in between, and you have to do a little bit of stretching to kind of get these edges and ends to meet up. But that's pretty much how this was created. So if you can get that worked out, you're good to go. Would I make this again? Probably not, only because you need a brim board. I don't have access to the material that was used to create the brim board, but I will say it is very stiff, and it is flexible, so you can kind of, shape it if you want to shape it, or make it a bit flatter. It'll kind of keep its shape there. So it is a good quality brim board, so whatever they used is good. Even the yarn itself. There are a few points in the video that suggest you use a lighter to sort of, once you've trimmed the end of this, it suggests that you use a lighter to melt. I guess it's to keep it from fraying. I never use that, and to assume that people have a lighter on hand. I don't know. I don't like that. That's just my personal preference as I'm leaving this review. I've never used a lighter to melt my yarn, but I did weave it in. I made sure it was woven in quite well. I've never actually had to cut the yarn at all and start over like they suggested. But again, it's just me being more experienced crocheter and knowing what I can do and what I can't do. But I didn't find the need to melt and take a lighter to this. And it's holding up quite well. So overall, that is my review of this project. Again, just take it for what it is. It is not for the absolute beginner project, but it is for beginners that do understand the basics and can visually follow along with the video should you need to, because the written instructions aren't fantastic. But again, you'd have to have a bit of knowledge in knowing how to decipher the pattern and knowing what it means. So that's why I like having a visual of the product that I'm making, so I can sort of refer to that visually. Because again, I did kind of get hung up with, well, what are they trying to say? What are they trying to instruct here? And had I not been able to have a visual on the tutorial to see, oh, you're making granny stitches at this point, and you're making several rows of granny stitches, and you're starting with a magic ring, which they don't even tell you you're starting with a magic ring. Again, it's things you kind of have to know and have a little experience with. So at least it's a project that it can be made. So I'm happy to have been able to finish this in a couple of days. I think it looks all right. Doesn't look half bad. Nothing I wear personally, so it's probably something I'd be happy to gift to any of my friends watching that seem to like this hat. Let me know. It's available. And that will be it for this video, because I think I've gone on, I'm pretty sure I was close to an hour before I started this. Now we're another 16, 17 minutes in. So I will leave it here. And thanks again for joining me here at Heather's Crochet Corner. I'll come back with another video very soon.